Gentlemen, good moed. Good evening once again. A warm welcome to our Kinus Torah this evening. Something which the Rebbe was particularly fond of, an initiative of the Rebbe, and something that we've tried keeping, driving, motivating, and growing throughout a number of years in our shuls. Joining us this evening, or shall I say returning to us this evening, is Rabbi Yossi Liu, Shliach in Atlanta, Georgia. Rabbi Liu visited here a number of years ago on occasion of one of the primary Yom Pagras. Rabbi Liu as well was a Shliach here in Yeshiva quite a number of years ago. And Rabbi Liu has agreed and accepted our invitation to join us this evening to share some more memories, recollections, beautiful moments that he was able to share, to experience in our Rebbe's presence. So it is with great pleasure that I'd like to ask Rabbi Liu to kindly take over from here. Rabbi Liu, a good moed and a very warm welcome. Rabbi Liu, you're on if you can hear me.
There we go. I had some technical issues. I was hearing you and hearing myself. I had two videos open. Kiflayim L'Tashia. Good morning, everybody. Shalom Aleichem to all my old friends and even those who are not so old. And hopefully by the end of this Kinus Torah, we'll all be good friends like the good old days. I am extremely appreciative to Rabbi Shochat for inviting me to say hello to South Africa. South Africa is where part of my neshama remains, having spent 2 years on the shlichus of the Rebbe. We arrived on January 3rd, Chav Ches Tevis, the birthday of the Rebbetzin Chana. Today is the birthday of her husband, Rav HaGoin, Rav HaMakubal, Harav HaKodesh, Reb Levi Yitzchak, father of the Rebbe. And that was on her birthday that we arrived in South Africa in 1984, and we stayed until Elul of 1985. And it was 2 years of intense love, beautiful work, and trying to bring the Rebbe to the community and trying to bring the community into us. And we all have a piece of South Africa with us, and I proudly go around that. That was my beginning of my career in shlichus, and I bring that with me wherever I go, Baruch Hashem. So, Shalom Aleichem, welcome to a special place in my heart. Talking about birthdays, we recently celebrated the Rebbe's birthday, Yud Aleph Nisan, Rebbe's 118, when we are all aware of that, because every day we're saying Kuf Yud Tes, which takes a very long time. For some reason, God made this idea that we need to stay home. So there's plenty of time to learn it by heart, so that as soon as we get out of this, we should be able to walk around saying it wherever we are. When the Rebbe's birthday came by, it is this year, Shnas Shivim, is Shivim Shana, 70 years from the Rebbe's Nesius, from the Rebbe's becoming the Rebbe, after the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away in Tafshin Yud, or in 1950. So it's 70 years since then. And so the theme of Yud Aleph Nisan was the theme of 70. And so it would be a good time, especially that today, a week ago was Yud Aleph Nisan, last Sunday, and today would have been the Rebbe's bris. It was the Rebbe's bris 118 years ago, on the same day of his father's birthday, Yud Ches Nisan, Chai Nisan. And in that case, I would like to take us all back to the Rebbe's birthday, the Rebbe's 70th birthday, in honor of Shivim Shana, of the Rebbe's 70 years of Nesius. The Rebbe's 70th birthday was a very big deal. First of all, the Rebbe was turning 70. Secondly, no Lubavitcher Rebbe had turned 70 outside of the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Tzemach Tzedek turned 70 more than 110 years before 1972, when the Rebbe would turn 70. And so Hasidim were very excited about this milestone. And Hasidim wanted to do everything in their power to make this birthday a memorable one and a special one. And so there were various initiatives. The Bochrim came up with learning the Rebbe's sichos of the Kuti sichos that were available during that time, which was not that many. There was only about 7, I think Chelik Zion or maybe Chelik Ches had come out. That's it. So there was a lot to learn in those books, and there was a lot of delving into those books. As a result of that, a lot of people had questions and understanding of other parts in the Torah, and some began to write some things down, and it turned into a chayvetz. It turned into a booklet. They used to hang up these ideas on the walls of 770, and eventually turned into a printed booklet called Ha'aris Hatmimim Va'anash, a name that the Rebbe gave, which means these are remarks from the Bochrim and from the Hasidim and from the general Lubavitch population, and that turned into a institution of its own, where a lot of yeshivas would give out different pamphlets every week, or booklets every week, every 2 weeks, and in it would be discussions about different parts of Torah, but the first part would always be the Rebbe's sichos. So this was one initiative. There were other initiatives giving tzedakah, and eventually the excitement built up, and they didn't even know if there would be a Farbrengen for sure. But in 1972 was 1 year after 1971. The Rebbe Farbrengen for the first time in 1971 after Farbrengen for his 60th birthday in 1962. But this was the first time then, and then it was 1972, 73, and then every year the Rebbe Farbrengen on Yud Aleph Nissen in the weekday. Yud Aleph Nissen can never fall on a Shabbos, and that year was the same as this year, which means that Yud Aleph Nissen was a Sunday. I personally was just under 8 years old at that time, and I recall the excitement and the build up to it. I also recall my father going to New York for that Shabbos and Sunday. Obviously, everybody was going to go. Everyone who was a chassid was going to make every effort to go there, despite the fact that it's mamash 4 days before Pesach. And it was a very full Farbrengen. Representatives of the whole world came. Lubavitch was not that massive then. It wasn't that great. It wasn't that big, I mean. But there was a lot of people there from all over the world. And the Rebbe did not disappoint. The Farbrengen was an incredible, energetic Farbrengen. And after the first Sikha, the next 4 Sikhas, the Rebbe developed a theme based on the pasuk in Koheles that says, Odom lo omol yulod. Man was born to toil. And the Rebbe developed that theme, just profound. It's just really beautiful. And in the letter that the Rebbe sent out for that Yud Aleph Nissen was also this idea. This was the theme of Yud Aleph Nissen. We're here to work. We're here to toil. We're here to make a noise. And then came the Mimer at the Farbrengen. And after the Mimer, the one who normally started the Nigunim started whatever Nigun it was. But there was a certain feeling among the Hasidim that there was like an outburst of love, of energy. And for the third time in this Farbrengen, they began to sing B'cha Hashem Chasisi, B'cha Hashem Chasisi, B'cha Hashem Chasisi, that niggin. And that niggin was the niggin that they had come up with for that year of Yud Aleph Nissen. It's in the Kapitel Ayin Aleph, in the Rebbe's Kapitel of that year. And it was Moshe Telashevsky, Chasen Telashevsky, who heard a niggin like this. It was sort of somewhat of a bub of a niggin or a tzanza niggin. And he put it together with these words, and this became the theme song, basically, of that Yud Aleph Nissen. On Motzei Shabbos, on the eve of Yud Aleph Nissen, there was a rikud, there was a dance in 770. 770 wasn't as big as it is today. It's not that big today, but those days it was half the size. And so the dance went through the shul downstairs, up the stairs and out into the street, up to the upstairs of 770, down the steps and around. That was there was no place in 770 itself for all the people who were dancing. So you can imagine that, and it was that niggin the whole night. So you can imagine that niggin really, it expressed this Yidalefness and the Rebbe's 70th birthday, and he began to sing that niggin. And immediately the Rebbe began to encourage with the head and then with his hand. And this niggin went on for 28 minutes. Now, as I said, when I was during the time, and I was that age, it was really a little bit over my head. I recall the happening, but I cannot recall the details. I don't know what the Rebbe said. And I don't know what happened there. I was too young to appreciate that. And my father was not around. And my father was at the Fabrengen in New York. And so it passed by me. Several years later, when I was 13, maybe 14, maybe 15, I was going through all of the talks of the Rebbe as they are presented in what we call Hanochas. Hanochas are written form that were written by some Bochrim who had good memories, with the encouragement of the Rebbe and with the encouragement of Rabbi Yoel Kahn, who was in charge of Chazara, of recalling the Rebbe's Torah. This is an institution that I was, thank God I had the very big zchus to be included in that institution in the 80s. But this is now going back in the 70s, and I was like going through these pages, and I came across this Fabrengen. And then I come across at this moment in the Fabrengen, this niggin. And it's written in the Hanocha, in the transcript of this Fabrengen, that they sang the niggin B'cha Hashem Chasisi with great enthusiasm. His oiderus gedola in Hebrew, with great inspiration. And the Rebbe said the following sikha, based on this inspiration. What did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said that there was something that he wanted to establish in Lubavitch, that he wanted to not just establish, but he wanted to place it with a strength, with a power in Chabad, and he was waiting for his Oidurus Hanikeres. He was waiting for an obvious, clear, inspirational moment to say this, to install this into Lubavitch. And what the Rebbe said was there are people who approached him and wrote to him and suggested to him that since he was turning 70, it's time to upruhen sich. It's time to take a rest. And the Rebbe said that first of all, you don't look at your passport to find out how old you are. You look at how much strength Hashem has given you. And if you have the strength, then you continue. And then the Rebbe said that in that, I'm paraphrasing now, making it brief, that in that case, he wants to establish 71 new institutions through that year in honor of the 70th year and the 71st year that's coming. So 1 year from today will be, the Rebbe will turn 71. He wants 71 new institutions in Lubavitch. For the Rebbe to say that in 1972, it would be like the Rebbe saying today he wants 5,000 new institutions by next year, which would mean dozens every day. It was like an impossibility. How are you going to find 71 new institutions? And the Rebbe sensed that right away. The Rebbe said, there are people who will be worried about this or scared about this ambitious activity here, this ambitious campaign. You don't have to worry about it. You'll see that as soon as you start working, it's going to be much easier than you think it is. That was the basic point that the Rebbe made. It was a very, very rich, beautiful sikha with a lot of different sides to it. But this was the point that the Rebbe made. And the Rebbe said he was waiting for this special his oididus miyuchodo, or sedidus hanikeres, an inspiration that you can feel, that's tangible. And that's what he was waiting for in order to come up with this campaign of 71 new institutions for next year, which, by the way, gave the Rebbe 71 new headaches. And certainly it grew Lubavitch to leaps and bounds. There was no comparison to Lubavitch in 1972 to 82. It took off from there. From there came the Mivtzoim and the Tefillin campaigns and the tanks, mitzvah tank, all that started around there. So I'm reading these words, and it says that they sang B'chor Hashem Chasisi with this great inspiration, and the Rebbe recognized it. I'm saying to myself, what does a great inspiration mean? What exactly does that mean when you say that there was a great inspiration here? A great inspiration? What do you mean? They sang it loud, they sang it long, they sang it heavy. What does that mean? And so I took the book and I went over to my father and I said, listen, you were there. It says over here that they sang these words, they sang this niggun. What happened there? My father says, oh, that was unbelievable. Okay, good. What happened? Like, what does a description of a great inspiration mean? You know, there's no page of the Rebbe's transcript of his sichos that such words appear. It's the only time it appears. So there must be something really, really unique and special. What was it? And he says, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And I said, like, what do you mean? And as much as I asked him, there was no words, there was no description. He couldn't say, he could not answer that question. And so I gave up and I decided to ask somebody who was more my age, and I knew several Bachrim and people who were around at that time, and each one of them reacted in basically the same way. Oh, it was amazing. It was unbelievable. I said, what do you mean? We sang the niggun for a long time. I said, they sang the niggun for a long time in other Farbrengens, but it doesn't say this special his oididus, this special inspiration. And the Rebbe never really paid any attention to that. What does it mean? And no one could answer. I posed this question to a lot of people, and nobody answered this question. In the early 80s, 82, 83, they began to sell tapes of old Farbrengens. There was an institution called WLCC, World Lubavitch Communication Center, which was basically the room of the Shidurim, they call it, the room of the broadcasts, where in 770, up on the main floor of 770, there's a room in the back, and that room belonged to Chaim Baruch Halberstam, who established this idea of hookups, that everyone around the world can hear the Rebbe live as the Rebbe is saying it. And in that WLCC, you can buy the tapes right immediately after following the Farbrengen. Within an hour, you can buy the tape of that Farbrengen. In the 80s, they